This is TopGolf.
We all know it for being this flashy, fun golfing experience where long drive hitters and Instagram girlies go to film content for their platforms and is generally a very fun experience. But a few years ago, the story changed a little bit when Callaway decided to partner with the entertainment-based golf experience, making it at that point the largest golf brand in the world by revenue. But now, just 3 years later, Callaway wants to separate from or sell TopGolf completely. But let's figure out why it all happened, because it turns out, I think it was all pretty predictable. All right, so historically speaking, golf has never really been that accessible. High prices, snobby staff, and incredibly time-consuming in nature, the sport has always felt exclusionary and only available to the few who could afford the time off from their jobs and family and the financial burden the sport could bring. That is exactly where the idea of TopGolf came in. In 2000, two British brothers wanted to start something new and bring something new to the golf game they would. With new upgraded golf ranges, they wanted to create a more engaging and entertaining driving range experience. So they patented a game and made golf balls infused with tracking devices to measure distances, and so they hope to do exactly that. It wouldn't exactly catch on immediately, with only one location for 2 years, until a partnership with 2002 Ryder Cup winning captain Sam Torrance and then other financial backers came in with a £15 million bid, around 40 million in 2023 US dollars, to open up 10 additional sites across the UK, and then in 2005, the growing brand would finally make its jump across the ponds to Washington, D.C., where the first TopGolf USA location would open. From that point on, generally in the United States, TopGolf expanded very quickly, and they stuck to their original promise by providing a golf game to as many people as possible, and making what could be generally a dull sport for many, well, flashy, fun, and exhilarating at times. Some of the most viral videos online are from girls messing up at TopGolf or long drive hitters smashing balls over the fence and getting in trouble there. And that shows just how impactful TopGolf can be. After over a decade in the United States, in 2017, TopGolf's annual revenue was at $630 million. But in 2023, that number nearly tripled, ending the year at $1.76 billion. And for golf brands, that is an insane number, putting that company's revenue alone right alongside the largest golf brands, including Titleist and Callaway in terms of revenue, partially because those TopGolf sites are decently profitable. The general contract that TopGolf uses for most of its sites are rental agreements, often tax advantaged, allowing their landlords small increases in rental prices over the few decades, and that allows TopGolf to limit the costs and liabilities of purchasing a property. I've heard stories about how McDonald's isn't just in the fast food business because it's a real estate company, owning I think about 40% of all McDonald's locations worldwide and the land they sit on. But TopGolf is completely different, and that makes sense because TopGolf takes up so much more space than McDonald's. It would be much more costly to invest and probably much more difficult to grow the brand. But now, with rental agreements instead of purchasing the land, all they have to do is pay to build their range, which is often put in place where a range has already been, and then they can pay that off relatively quick. Now, this can and has led to a lot of problems for TopGolf, as those tax advantages are often offered by town boards, while actual citizens in the town can be upset or dismayed at the introduction of a relatively unsightly building with 30-foot nets and bright lights all around that bring a lot of young people. But for the most part, that's not really an issue, as the company continues to plan more sites over and over, and more growth is being seen inside the company every single year. And that growth is one of the reasons that I think Callaway got into bed with TopGolf in the first place.
TopGolf is now open at their newest location in Midtown.
There's new TopGolf just opened up today on the peninsula.
The new TopGolf in Charlotte is opening on Friday.
One of the biggest equipment manufacturers in the golf game, Callaway, almost always has been a very marketing-focused company, doing everything they can to get their products and name in front of as many people as possible. Be that with groundbreaking innovations like the Callaway Big Bertha metalwoods from the 90s, or outrageous advertisements like this one.
Have you ever felt better than you do right now?
Sure.
Last Sunday, I was on the 9th hole. It's par 4. I took out my great big Bertha and I teed it up. I let loose.
They saw something that they could take advantage of with TopGolf and jumped at the opportunity. But the truth is, Callaway's relationship with TopGolf has been a lot longer than just recently, because Callaway first became an investor in TopGolf in 2006. They saw the potential for the brand to increase the popularity of golf and really wanted to cement a connection with a brand that could connect them with more new golfers. And that's exactly what it seemed motivated them to invest yet again in 2020, when they announced a full acquisition of, or sort of partnership with TopGolf for over $2 billion in stock options for the new combined company to come together. And the moment that happened, that made Callaway not only the largest golf brand by revenue, but one of the larger sporting brands altogether. Callaway's CEO at the time, Chip Brewer, told Golf.com this at the time about the move. TopGolf is the best thing that happened to golf since Tiger Woods. It's transforming the game, and it's going to be the biggest source of growth for our industry. That's a bold take, and we're going to come back to all of that in a little bit, because I think there are some real flaws with their thought process around this purchase. But before we get into that, we need to properly understand that thought process to see how they got into that relationship and the golf climate at the time the move was made. 2020. The world goes dark and sporting events across the United States, including professional golf, are suspended completely. For the first time since 2005, Callaway experiences a dip in revenue year over year and feels pressed to make a move, one that could spark interest and spike sales, especially with the golf market seemingly stalling. Now, there are generally a few ways companies can do this when they're in these situations. They could innovate in the market and provide their customers with a totally new experience, something fresh and new, like they did back in the day with the Big Bertha Metalwoods, and then again this year, along with TaylorMade, through the reintroduction of the Mini Driver. But instead, however, they decided to take another path, one that we are very familiar with from the biggest companies in most markets, acquiring another company that is growing in an area untouched by them. With TopGolf, their immediate access to consumers grew immensely, as they could now drop Callaway clubs into over 100 locations. And especially considering that TopGolf was accessing primarily non-golfers, while Callaway was in theory giving themselves a major step up from the competition, because they would be the first and potentially only golf brand that any of these customers would know, likely giving them a little bit of a better chance at converting a sale in the future. And after all, I was going to criticize the Callaway CEO at the time, but I think he was right to some extent, because TopGolf was the most viral thing to happen in golf since Tiger Woods, in my opinion. Back in the day, Tiger's name appeared all over newspapers and everything. When he went to cities, the world stopped there for a little while and everything covered him. And in 2020 and the years prior, TopGolf's videos showing these long drivers or girls in skirts went crazy online for one reason or another, and that likely drove a lot of intrigue into the game by the people viewing the content, because they saw the game doing well online, being exciting online, or being fun to watch for some reason in the TikTok and YouTube and Instagram algorithms. So why not try it out themselves? So up until Callaway's merger with TopGolf, the company had seen a very consistent rise to the top for TopGolf, continuing to open up locations every year and innovating each of the spaces, sometimes abandoning older locations like they did with the original in the US when they ceased operating in their DC or Alexandria, Virginia location. But for the most part, they were incredibly successful and drove a lot of money around this game of golf, or this game of TopGolf, for the reason I've said so many times, that it appealed to a lot more people than a relatively niche game. And so this merger was supposed to be huge, and I really think Callaway believed it would be. I recently had a conversation with someone who was at a talk with Callaway's CEO during the PGA Merchandise Show a few years ago, and he said that Callaway fully expected TopGolf's revenue alone to exceed Callaway's own in just a few years after the merger. That much growth is a lot. But with the boom that golf and golf brands were seeing at the time, I could imagine that after pandemic rush, well, they could see it happening for TopGolf as well. According to the National Golf Foundation, the amount of golf rounds played in the US rose 60 million in 2021, and then almost 30 million again in 2022. They could see it happening in golf. Maybe they could see it happening in TopGolf, and spoiler, they were right. It did. By the end of 2023, TopGolf's total revenue had reached $1.76 billion, bringing Callaway's total revenue, including equipment and clothing sales, to well over $4 billion. But to be fair, that wasn't the only thing Callaway was doing at the time to drive more sales, especially in trying to reach new golfers, like their partnership with Good. Not only were they putting clubs in the hands of these very influential people, but they were also actually coming out with clubs directly in partnership with the boys. And I think that is such an incredible step forward. They've also partnered with 5-Iron, which is one of the largest indoor simulator businesses in the United States and is a partner of the channel. So use my link in the description to check it out and, buy anything. I'll get a kickback. But that gave golfers access to Callaway clubs in ways we've never really seen before. And all of that likely contributed to an increase in success of the golf equipment and apparel sales over the past few years that Callaway was experiencing. And the whole point of that was just to show that TopGolf isn't necessarily the reason that Callaway was being successful. And the truth is, I honestly don't think it was at all, because I think something was going on inside the two companies, or one company now, that wasn't necessarily visible to everyone else. See, the big reason for this partnership at all, that was emphasized time and time again by Callaway executives, was the reach and then conversion potential that TopGolf could bring to Callaway's business. And because TopGolf doesn't have a ton of assets now outside of their Top Tracer technology that they are able to license out to golf ranges and bring in revenue that way, well, in theory, that's really the only driver for the partnership from Callaway's point of view, because otherwise it's not really related to golf, or not necessarily. And it turns out, despite a few years of very impressive growth for TopGolf and Callaway, TopGolf wasn't really converting enough. And finally, in 2024, sales for TopGolf have remained very stagnant over the year prior, and the only real growth has occurred at all because of their opening new stores, with same stores sales declining 8% during Q2 2024 and not expected to rise much more. And now, with those very less than impressive numbers, the now partnered company had seen their stock price plummet from a high in 2021, despite the fact that Callaway's numbers were going up throughout that entire time. And after a strategic review of TopGolf earlier this year, Callaway didn't see much use for the business being tied so clearly to Callaway. And quickly after that came an announcement saying that Callaway was looking to spin off TopGolf into its own entity or sell it entirely, where Callaway wouldn't be any longer directly affected by the rise and fall of the entertainment business. And the truth is, it should have been more clear that that was going to happen from the very start, honestly. Now, it's easy for me to say that, but every time I hear someone describe TopGolf today, they say it's like a bowling alley, an event that you can go on with your friends, order a bunch of bar food, and play a little game that you aren't very good at for a little while before splitting, honestly, a relatively expensive bill with your friends and then going on your merry way. And I'd wager 90% of those people that have bowled have never bought a bowling ball before. And yeah, maybe I'm wrong and those numbers are general, but I would be willing to bet it's kind of close to that. So Callaway was right that it would open up the door to customers that may never have touched golf before, but problem was that it doesn't really matter how wide open that door is if no one steps through it. And then the door closes quickly on itself anyway. And I say that because the very high prices of TopGolf are probably closing the door for most people unless you are with a very large group, because we might also be entering a tricky financial period in the United States, which spells a bad time for entertainment-based events like TopGolf's, because they're considered luxury in the lives of consumers, while the golf equipment might not necessarily be affected as much. The stock price has been falling for years. Same location revenue is falling and conversions aren't happening. So yeah, I'd kind of say that TopGolf failed, at least in its ambitious partnership with Callaway that helped them bring in, for a little while, far and away more revenue than any golf brand has ever seen and genuinely might ever see again. Does that mean TopGolf is gonna close everywhere and you're gonna stop seeing the internet girlies and long drivers smashing balls in front of the pretty lights? No, not at all. But its time as a golf company is suppressed for now. Thank you to my Patreon supporters, especially Jake Parsons, for making this video possible. And if you enjoyed this video, go check out this one about the fall of Nike Golf, or this one about whatever YouTube thinks you might be interested in. Thank you for watching.